Onward, we have Childebert III. Now in this little image here, he's listed as the second, and you find that often in genealogies as well, where they're the second of one and they're the third of another. So, but coinciding, I have proof here, it is written that it is AD 695, and also on this image it is saying 695. So there is that, and he is saying 17th war. So, excuse me. All right, off to Childebert III. Childebert succeeded to the dominions of his brother. Oh, did I set this in stone? Yeah, it's on. Okay. Did I set this in stone? Isn't that interesting? We say these things like set this in stone. It's like, well, we used to pummel in stone, apparently. Okay, so succeeded to the dominions of his brother and became equally a captive with that monarch. He was but in his 10th or 11th year when he ascended the throne, and his minority gave Pepin a fresh opportunity of acquiring a considerable augmentation of authority. His court was attended by all the chief officers, the count of the palace, the grand referendary, and the attendant of the royal mansions. He had only placed about the person of his youthful sovereign a few faithful servants of his own, who were less studious to serve him than to watch his motions. The ambitious regent had two sons, Drogon and Grimaud, the first whom he created Duke of Burgundy, and the second he appointed mayor of the palace of Neustra, the eldest dying soon after. The youngest succeeded to his principality, as it is called by the author of the Annals of Metz, when it appears that this duchy was a kind of sovereignty, or duchy. Pepin did not suffer his whole time to be occupied by projects of ambition. He devoted a part of it to the softer pursuits of love. Some writers pretend that he repudiated Plectrude in order to marry Alfeda, by whom he had a son. Afterwards, so well known, it's a weird name for a woman, I know, well, Alfeda, afterwards so well known by the name of Charles Martel. But there are several acts still extant, which prove that the former was never separated from her husband, so that the second only enjoyed the title of mistress, or else the Austrian duke, like the many of the first kings of France, and according to the custom of the ancient Germans, had two wives at the same time. This offence against the sacredness of marriage rights, excited the zeal of Lambert, Bishop of Liège, who openly inveighed against it, as a public instance of adultery, that merited the severest reprobation. The prelate was assassinated by Odo, brother to Alpedo. Yeah, I mean, that was a big excitement. Somebody got a double marriage or a mistress. A real big deal, you know. Some military expeditions took place during this reign. War was declared against Egica. Oh my gosh, Egica, yes, king of the Visigoths. But no accounts of its progress or termination have been preserved. Radibod, Duke of the Frisians, revolted a second time, and was again defeated and reduced to subjection. The Germans, or Alemanni, in union with the Suevi, shook off the French yoke, and Pepin, marching against them, defeated, well, here it is, William, their Duke. The first mention of William. Now, there were a lot of Williams over there in Alemanni. But here we have William, their Duke. But yet he could not subdue the spirit of that nobleman, whom in short time again took up arms and experienced a similar check. Still, his courage was unabated, and was found necessary to fend a third army against him, which was to the point of entering on the German territories. When the death of Childebert, well, superinduced its recall. Okay, so now we're getting closer to German territories. Now my hair's starting to look like that one guy. What was his name? Well, I don't know. Maybe he wore it the same, with a pin. This prince died in the 29th year. 29th year of his age. And the 15th or, well, 17th of his reign. Not sure the exact. He was buried with his brother at Choisy upon Aisne. Childebert had a wife whose name is unknown, and one son who succeeded him under the appellation of Dagobert III. But few monarchs have paid a greater attention to the precepts of Christianity than Childebert. His strict observance of justice and his efforts to enforce a due administration of it throughout his dominions procured him the surname of Just. So he was Childebert the Just. No, I'm sorry. Are we talking? Yeah, Childebert the Just. Okay, wow. Okay, next. It's weird. It's like, okay, yeah, ancestry and as like a crime in life, you're going to have to read it up again. 300, 500, 600, 800 years later, 1,000. What are we at? Almost like 2,000. This feels like it. All right, so now we're at a 7-Eleven. Okay, 7-Eleven. Now we're talking. That used to be a great superstore, mini instance. I don't know if it's great anymore, but we have the Dagobert III in 711 AD. So let's see if this was a quick, fast, go get a cup of coffee. And it is. It's a quick chapter. Believe it or not. See how history is an odd, weird, and repeat? It's almost too strange. Dagobert, upon ascending the throne, was destined to experience the fate of his predecessor. He was shown to the people, receiving their homage and their presents, and was shut up in a country seat, to lead a life of indolence, unworthy his birth and station. He was not more than 12 years of age, so that Pepin continued to enjoy his usual extent of authority. So here we have another young one. Sent him out to country. That nobleman renewed his design of subduing the Germans and Suevi, and in the course of the war that he waged against them, so many of them were killed that they were disabled, and for some time from the pursuit of hostile measures. But Radebaud, Duke of the Frisians, continued to give him serious cause for apprehension, in order to avert the effects of his enemy. Pepin asked the hand of his daughter, Theodelinda, for his own son Grimiod. The marriage was accordingly concluded, though it was not attended with any of those advantages which Pepin expected to derive from it. 714. Some time after this, Pepin fell dangerously ill at Jupille, one of his country houses, on the banks of the Meuse, opposite his castle of Heristal. Grimiald immediately left the capital in order to visit him, and he passed through Liège. And as he passed through Liège, he entered the church of Saint-Lambert, where he was assassinated by a man named Rangel. Rangel, we'll call him. Rangair. He left an infant son called Theobald. Theobald, whom Pepin appointed mayor of the palace of Dagobert. Such an appointment was a gross encroachment on the privileges of the nobles, who had always enjoyed the right of choosing the mayor. It was also an injury to the state by giving it to a child for a governor, and an insult to the king by placing him under the tuition of an infant. The tuition, like intuition, like he has to study and look at this thing, and he doesn't want to. He's like, but he's not a babysitter. But as the Duke's authority was absolute, no one dared to murmur. So the Duke was more king than the king himself. This was the last ambitious attempt of Pepin. His disorder increasing, he expired at Jupille, after having reigned with the despotic authority for 27 years and a half. He certainly possessed many of those qualities which are essential to the formation of a hero. His mind, though capacious and enterprising, was ever regulated by the laws of prudence. He possessed a boldness of spirit which rose superior to every impediment, though it never betrayed him into unnecessary peril. He had wisdom and penetration to foresee and surmount dangers, with courage to face them whenever it was necessary. He possessed, in a supereminent degree, the admirable talent of keeping turbulent spirits in awe, and of so managing them. He was always to turn them to his own advantage. He proved useful to his country by the establishment of order, piety, and justice. But at the same time he must be considered as an usurper and a tyrant, because he deprived his sovereigns of their lawful authority, and kept them in a state of ignominy and oppression. He had 4 sons, Dragon, Grimiald, who died before him, Charles Martel, to whom, according to Eginhard, he bequeathed the office of mayor, and Childebrand, from whom it is pretended by some the 3rd race of monarchs descended. Theobald had succeeded his father Grimiald in the office of mayor of the palace of Neustria and Burgundy, and discharged the duties of his office under the tuition of his grandmother Plectrude. This ambitious woman, in order to regain all the power which her husband had possessed, caused Charles Martel to be arrested and put in confinement at Köln, where she generally resided. So Pepin was quite in charge for these 27 years, in almost a reign, even though he was not classed as king. But The Austrian nobles in 715 AD soon became disgusted with a female government applied to Dagobert, who was then in his 18th year, and excited him to war. The young prince, roused by their representations, took the management of affairs upon himself, and marching against the Austrasians, came up with their army in the forest of Guise, and obtained a complete and decisive victory. The slaughter was so dreadful and universal that Plectrude's grandsons could, with difficulty, escape. But the king wanted firmness to profit by his success. He submitted to a renewal of his captivity by suffering the election of another mayor of the palace. This important post was given to Runfoy, one of the bravest, most powerful noblemen at the court of Neustria. He carried the war into the heart of Austrasia, and according to the ferocious ideas of those times, he signalized his valor by the extent and cruelty of his depredations. In 716 AD, it was during these troubles that Charles Martel escaped from prison. The Austrasians received him with every demonstration of joy, and as he possessed all the brilliant qualities of Pepin, they looked on him with a kind of adoration, and with a unanimous voice chose him their duke. Such was the state of affairs when Dagobert died, in the 5th year of his reign. He was buried at the monastery of Choisy upon Aisne, where this monarch left one son, Thierry, by a wife whose name had not been preserved in history. Runfoy, thinking the prince too young to hold the reins of government, took Daniel, son of Childeric II, from the monastery in which he had assumed the habit an ecclesiastic, and placed him on the throne under the title of Childeric II. And there we are, there's Childeric II. After down here he's listed. Okay, so it looks like they're really wanting dukes more than kings, and so we have this new one in town, and so that was the fast chapter. And I'm going to take a break.